بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على المصطفى الأمين وعلى كل من تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما نافعا، آمين يا رب العالمين. Well, I'm very happy to participate on the first International Applied Linguistic Conference on Improving Reality through the lens of linguistic theory, which is organized by University. My thanks go to the conference organizer, Dr. Treed, and the conference committee and all persons who participated in making the conference true. I'm going to participate with the paper which is entitled Teaching English Pronunciation Through Storytelling Approach, the case of the first year EFL students at Saida University. So storytelling is seen as the oldest way of teaching children how to behave in real life situations. For this reason, it is regarded as a suitable way for communication. Researchers in the field of language teaching tend to adopt the approach to teaching English for EFL learners. The approach is employed to develop the writing, speaking, and listening skills. However, these studies do not recommend any given activities to be employed, and when it comes to English pronunciation, a few studies were conducted, and this literary gap was the first motivating point that motivated the researcher to explore the topic. Another motivating point is that the researcher focused on raising students' awareness towards the production of certain English vowels and consonants, and to raise also their attention and their awareness on the difficulties they are facing in producing these sounds and recognizing them in words. As such, this research work intends to give some scholarship on how to use storytelling approach, mainly digital storytelling approach, to improve students' speaking skills. It also attempts to reveal that storytelling helps in improving or in developing the speaking skills of EFL learners and reduce their pronunciation errors by checking the learner's ability to produce some vowels and consonants. To shed light on how storytelling technique can be used to improve English pronunciation for EFL learners, a pivotal question imposes itself. How can storytelling approach help the learners to develop their pronunciation? As such, the researcher raised the following research questions. Does storytelling approach help to improve EFL learners' English pronunciation and vocabulary knowledge? Can storytelling approach make EFL learners more interested in learning English pronunciation? As far as the literary gap is concerned, to the researcher's knowledge, studies have been conducted in the Algerian context on how to use the approach to improve students' English pronunciation. As far as the research instruments are concerned, the researcher used a semi-structured questionnaire to test students' familiarity with the approach. The questionnaire was distributed after the experiment, and the researcher selected the three groups. It means that 110 students for the test and to answer the questionnaire. The researcher also used a semi-structured interview to support the findings of the questionnaire, and the interview was conducted by 10 teachers from Saida University who had experience in teaching English pronunciation. For the experiment, the researcher employed a pre-test to test students' level mainly in producing some vowels and consonants, and a post-test was also conducted after the experiment. For both the pre-test and post-test, the researcher also focused on testing students' grammar performance and their vocabulary acquisition. And among the selected stories for the experiment, there are the men who worked around the world and the secret agent. Let's now move on to the findings section, starting with the analysis of the questionnaire. And the researcher selected the most important questions in relation to the research questions. So, according to the first question, almost all students answered that they noticed that the approach helped them in improving their speaking and listening skills. Now we move on to the results of the pre-test and post-test. So the results of here showed that there is a big difference between the results of the pre-test and that of the post-test. And it was found that 77% of the students improved their pronunciation, as you can see throughout the table, mainly in producing long and short vowels. The researcher also focused on vocabulary acquisition, and it was found that 44% of the students acquired new words and improved their grammar by 56%. The researcher focused on some vowels and consonants as table 3 shows to test students' mastery of these sounds, and it was found that the students' level of awareness has been improved after the experiment, and they started recognizing the errors they were making before the experiment. So students were informed to record and listen to their pronunciation. This step was supported with the use of a software called Pronunciation Coach, and the software employed what is called the language intelligibility score, and the students detected or started detecting their pronunciation errors and score better after the use of the software. We move on now to the analysis of the interview. So concerning the first question, 6% or 6 teachers claim that the use of stories motivates students and changes their attitudes, mainly towards learning modules like phonetics and oral production. For the second question, 77% of the information for linguistic skills, mainly speaking and writing. For the third question, 83% of the participants claim that the approach can be employed to teach all modules, mainly those who are linked to the four linguistic skills, due to many reasons, like the long syllabi, in addition to time constraints. A good example is the module of phonetics, which is taught for one session, and this is not enough. Concerning the last question, 85% of the teachers claim that exposing students to media tools is important to learn the pronunciation of any target language, and they added that it depends on the teacher to present effective activities and select the appropriate approaches to teach English pronunciation. Let us now move on to the discussion of the findings. So they are summarized as follows. So students' motivation towards the use of stories in learning a foreign language has changed. They become more motivated to develop their speaking and listening skills through being exposed to media tools. And in here, the researchers' focus is more on digital storytelling. And the findings also reveal that a teacher should give more importance to learning the four linguistic skills, although he's teaching other modules, like for example literature or civilization. So through reading stories, the teacher should check the students' vocabulary acquisition and the use of grammar rules. The findings also reveal that the experiment also raised students' awareness towards how sounds are produced by native speakers, and they can correct their pronunciation. And lastly, the findings show that students were more exposed to the sounds and their production through media ads more than the traditional way of practicing. In sum, storytelling approach is one of the most important methodologies employed by teachers to develop all the linguistic skills of the EFL learners, although there is a lack of scholarship on how to implement the method, which stories can be selected, and what kind of skills can be developed. Moreover, teachers can benefit from the introduction of this technique and make the learning process meaningful and competitive. Teachers can also raise the students' motivation towards the use of stories in class through allowing them to share their own stories. That is to say, they can have a hand in selecting the stories depending on their needs and motivations. For that, they can learn even how to structure stories and how to draw conclusions or the endings of tales. Moreover, developing the imaginative side helps in language learning, since it gives them the chance of writing and using their vocabulary. One can say that the use of such techniques does not only develop the students' linguistic skills, but also their thinking skills through being exposed to many stories that represent half of the reality. Hence, storytelling can create memory for the student and encourages him to use his linguistic and thinking skills to express what he has learned. And by the end, this is an overview about the study and how it was conducted and how the approach was used to teach English pronunciation for first year EFL students at Saida University. And thank you very much for your attention.